Hello, my name is Donna. Welcome to my channel. My channel is about recovery, and it's not the kind of recovery that you might think. It has nothing to do with drugs or alcohol, but recovering from abuse, attachment, system trauma, and just maladaptive patterns of behavior and relating. So, welcome. So, I've been talking a lot about attachment theory, and today I want to talk about coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, sort of how to, get to the core of these things and how to have empathy for other people's maladaptive behaviors so that we aren't behaving from our reactive mind, but more using our conscious mind. And I'm so triggered right now because I made the whole video and the dog was running with the pillow and my daughter got upset and I actually went into a very triggered moment because it was frustrating as hell. So it's about, being able to re-regulate our nervous system. But today I want to talk about the maladaptive patterns of behavior, which are arrogance and people-pleasing. And they are both defense mechanisms. They're a way to cope with what we don't want to feel. And so I guess I'll start out with, the subconscious mind is programmed, and it's a beautiful thing. It's so from birth until the age of 25, our the front structure of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is not fully online until age 25. That's where you can really use your conscious reasoning mind. They actually are finding with evolution and probably with the way things have gotten easier for us, we're no longer, living in really harsh survivalistic conditions, that we're using more of our conscious thought. And so that part of the brain is actually becoming more activated, they can see it with technology that it is evolving. So, but we, in the beginning, when we're first born, we're very malleable, we're very programmable, and it's actually done for a logical purpose. We even after the age of 25, of course, the subconscious mind is always storing memories, and when we store the memories, we store them with emotions, which creates what we call beliefs. So we have beliefs about everything. We store each experience and we put it all together, and then we create a belief from all these stored memories. So, the problem is that sometimes a stored memory, when we, it's why it's so important about living in the now moment, because, okay, so I guess I got to back up a second. The good purpose of the subconscious mind and the stored memories and that, and why we apply the past to the current moment, is so that we don't have to relearn everything, every day. It's always a self-protecting, and it's always for a benefit to the self, even maladaptive behaviors are. I'll talk about that in a minute. So imagine going to work every day and having to relearn every task, it would be debilitating, stressful, awful. So, you have the memories of the flow of things, So, but the problem is sometimes, we're in a present situation and it pings, that subconscious mind. It's like, oh wait, this little thing is the same as that. This is reminding me of this. And then you start applying that past to this present moment. Well, the problem is this moment may not have that same outcome. But what happens is it ends up almost always having the same outcome because we're bringing that past in, and then we're behaving the way we did there because we have that belief. So then we start behaving the way we did in that moment, and we're actually recreating that scenario because of that, So because when you react like that, then they react like this, and then that, it's that domino effect. So that's why it's so important to sort of just stay in this moment and to have your awareness, which is being the observer and realizing when you're acting out a pattern of behavior instead of really living in the present moment, allowing it to unfold. Now, it could end up being the same as that situation also, but you sit back and observe and you know that you're safe. It takes a lot of calming of the self, you're safe. If it does end up as that same, first of all, we're not going to react like we did before, because that creates that outcome that you're afraid of, So we're going to stay above in our awareness, and we're going to watch things, especially for me in relationships. I notice we're going to watch, and we're going to let these red flags show themselves to us, and then we're going to make a conscious choice on how we're going to react, instead of reacting from the past into the present moment. Okay, so and my channel is, and my philosophy is always about having empathy and love. And this does not mean staying in abusive relationships, please, because I will explain. I never want someone to do that. I have stayed in those connections, and I have done a great injustice to the person that was abusing me, to my own self-sovereignty, and to my children, and to everyone in my life. Because when you're being abused, you are not living in your full power. You will lose focus in your life. You will have a hard time staying regulated and in a place of peace and love. So believe me, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, when we can have empathy for an understanding of the computer's making a weird flash, sorry, for these patterns of behavior, then we can have a different reaction to them, and one, maybe not further trigger. And a very different thing than walking on eggshells. I'm talking about having internal logic that makes it so that we don't personalize and react and defend ourselves to other people's unhealthy behaviors. So, okay, I want to talk about arrogance as a defense mechanism, and the response to that of people pleasing. And they very much always do a dance together. The arrogance, when it's unhealthy, gets a response of the people pleasing. And all of these maladaptive behaviors come from different narratives. They're all the same behaviors, but my story may be a little different. And my understanding today, when I was journaling about where some of my people pleasing came from, may be a very different experience and story than yours, but it may be relatable. So first of all, I've talked before, and this is kind of along those same lines, about anger being a trauma response. And, to sort of help bring some empathy there, and some understanding when someone acts angry, a lot of times, especially like that overt anger that you don't understand, it's, again, some of that stuff leaking forward from the past, and it's a trauma response. So to not engage in that with your own defense mechanisms, which just creates that instead of connection, So, in which I just did with my daughter, because my dog went crazy in that. And, so it's okay to feel angry about situations, but it's how we react to that anger that can be unhealthy. So anyways, I was thinking about arrogance and observing how much that is a defense mechanism. There's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is, I'm better than everyone. I'm so great. I'm this and I'm that. Confidence is, I see I have flaws and I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable in my own being. I'm comfortable with not being perfect. That's confidence. Confidence is about connecting to others and feeling good enough about self to sit with others, to sit with others' successes, to sit with others' failures. That's confidence. Arrogance is, I have to feel good about myself by pointing out that I'm better than everyone else, that it shows they have no confidence, actually, because confidence would not behave like arrogance. So what is behind arrogance? What's behind arrogance is it's a defense mechanism, because there's a feeling behind that doesn't want to be felt. There is something behind that defense mechanism. The brain is sending those thoughts to protect self, and then it's speaking these narratives to protect self from something it does not want to feel. Now, of course, we don't want to sit in lack. We don't want to sit in those feelings, but we do have to go through them to process them. Otherwise we're just going to live, you know, coping mechanisms, even healthy ones, are wonderful. There are ways to cope. I'm going to tell a story about my mom. There are ways to cope with our anxiety in the moment, but they are not the healing. They are the coping. The healing is very different. The healing is when we come down, we use the coping mechanism to calm, a healthy one that isn't arrogance and pointing and, or people pleasing. It's we calm the nervous system and we come back and we are the observer, the awareness, and we look at the pattern of behavior and we get to the core belief. We walk through that fire. Sometimes it's very hard to be honest with self and go into that core belief because these defense mechanisms like arrogance too, people will call ego. Ego is the structure. Arrogance is a behavior. Arrogance will defend the ego. It's the behavior though. So we can look at these behaviors and see how we built our ego. What was the core belief that created this structure that is how we interact, how we feel about self and others. Ego is not bad. Ego is fine. Ego is perception of self. Ego can be healthy or unhealthy. Ego is very much needed. We are, first of all, not just one. We are beautifully us, individual, self-sovereign, autonomous individuals, and humanity as a whole, both. We are connected, and each these separate pieces. Wholeness is about each individual part comes together for a whole. So there is nothing wrong with having ego. It's your structure. It's your armor. It's how you engage with yourself. It is needed. If it wasn't there, you would just be a lump of blah. And I am sorry, we are not put to live to just be blah. We are here for both peace, silence, experience, and action. All. But the action should be inspired action. It should be used with our awareness, our mindfulness, our consciousness, not just playing out these patterns of behavior, It should be, our awareness. So we're not just reacting, we are going with the true, authentic flow, So what I noticed in myself was that when I would see someone being arrogant, I thought that maybe I would automatically go into people pleasing. When I experienced someone being arrogant, it would activate my defense mechanism of people pleasing. So they're arrogant, then I people please. And then I really delved into what created me to people please when someone's arrogant. And remember, they are being arrogant because they are covering up something that they do not want to feel. It's a defense mechanism. They're defending something, They're defending a belief that, that a structure that's there that they, that they don't want it to be fractured. They want to believe that, and it is, like I said, confidence is a very different feeling. Confidence is not a defense mechanism. It means healthy ego is already there, I already feel, that oneness, that wholeness, I already feel okay in myself. I'm already accepting what is, the way things are in this world, the structure of the world, like duality, night and day, up and down, in and out, light and dark, they exist here. It's when we have this opposition that causes so many problems. When we accept what is, this world is dualistic. By denying that we live in a dualistic world is in itself opposition. You're opposing it. When we have acceptance, we have connectivity. That's when we understand. So anyways, the defense mechanism of arrogance is protecting self from something they do not want to feel. They created this substructure, this mask, this false ego apart from the authentic self that is being defended by a behavior called arrogance. So I noticed then me as a people pleaser, that's very much a trauma response. People pleasing is a trauma response. So I thought, well, is their arrogance making me feel like they're going to abuse me? It may. I mean, some of it, some of it may be, things are a rat's nest. It's not always just this one thing. There's many beliefs, to cut through, to get to that core and rip that bugger out, that's not serving me. But I noticed in myself that actually by observing, well, wait, I feel them being very arrogant. And everyone has their own responses. For me, it didn't make me angry at them. What it would do is it would activate the people pleasing. And I think from my own experience of trauma, and everyone has trauma in their life. No one lives free of trauma. There's suffering everywhere. It's just the degrees of it. But someone that's lived through a lot of abuse and trauma, we become very hypervigilant. We become very sensitive, very attuned to things and behavior. So I noticed that I didn't see the arrogance. I saw the pain behind it. I saw what they were trying to cover up. I saw that discomfort behind that arrogant behavior. And so that's what we, people call us empaths, and that people that are very attuned to other people's feelings. I was feeling what they weren't. I was feeling for them, literally feeling for them. They had that arrogant coping mechanism, defense there. Here's the thing that needs to be felt, and they have that covering it up so they can't see it. But I would see this. I would see this and I would feel for that. And so I would people please, So here someone's being arrogant. They're putting up this coping mechanism, this defense mechanism, and I would go into people pleasing mode. And, I would feel that for them. I would feel the pain for them. I would feel all this for them. They're not feeling it. They're arrogant. They don't feel it. And I'm feeling it for them. So what happens in this situation is when I go into caretaking mode and people-pleasing mode for someone that's not even asking for this from me, and they can't even see that they need it, they don't see the need, I am enabling. I am not allowing them to see that. I'm not allowing them to see that white elephant in the room. I'm not allowing them to see that discomfort. Now, we don't want people to feel uncomfortable. No one wants to feel uncomfortable. That's why the brain sends these defense mechanisms. We want to feel good. That's why we create these substructures to ego, these false egos that aren't the authentic one. We want to feel good, and we think that this is the way that it will, but it's not. You have to walk through that ring of fire. You have to walk through that discomfort to process it so that you no longer have to defend it, so you no longer have to create these defense mechanisms. You have to feel that discomfort. So same, the people pleasing is, it's so that what I noticed with self, and I got to a core, I remembered a childhood experience that very much, believe me, is not my mom's intention, but was what happened, what got programmed into my mind and created this natural desire to caretake, to do a song and dance so that this person could stay in their arrogance, because I didn't want them to feel discomfort. I didn't want them to feel that pain that I could see. I was like, God, that pain sucks. I don't want them to feel that. Let them feel that arrogance. Let them feel that arrogance. And then that's enabling, that's that, like walking on eggshells and enabling and people pleasing. And what it does is it makes it so that they can't feel that themselves and they can't process it. So, you're living in that illusion with them. You're allowing those defenses to cover up whatever needs to just be felt and worked through and processed. So I noticed that's very much what I did. So I started getting into it was like, I didn't, for the arrogant person, I didn't think they were better than me. That wasn't the feeling that I had. The feeling that I had was pity. I felt pity, I felt pity for them. I felt for them that, So then I would self-sabotage. So then I would, let them do their arrogant behavior, and I would, oh, it's okay. I can feel this for them. I can make them happy. I can do a song and dance. I can be whatever they need so they don't have to feel their own discomfort. And essentially what I was doing was not allowing myself to feel the discomfort of someone else being uncomfortable. That was my epiphany. That is healing. That is getting to those core beliefs. I am extremely uncomfortable with someone else feeling uncomfortable. Where did that belief come from? So I started digging. I started digging into my own being to see where that pattern and belief would come from. Why can't I let someone else feel uncomfortable? I go directly into a song and dance, a people pleasing. I just a segue to another story. I like sitting with someone else's discomfort. My youngest daughter was having a moment, and it was like a heightened, like an emotional dysregulation. And that happens, like when we're letting all of that trauma come forward, and we're letting, a current moment, we're feeling all of those moments at once because it reminds us of the past. And it's lighting up the whole subconscious mind, that primal mind. They call it the reptilian mind. And, you go into, those you can go into a complete like emotional dysregulation, and that's then where all those defense mechanisms come in: anger, arrogance, whatever you can do to not feel that like dysregulation. Or sometimes you can just feel it and go into like just a tailspin. It's called emotional dysregulation. But anyways, of course it's my daughter. I don't want her to feel like that. I don't want either of my daughters to feel any pain, and which is kind of, it's awful because then I don't let them experience life and I don't let them process their own stuff. I try to process it for them. So I just sat there, I was in the car with her, and she was going through a dysregulation, discomfort. She's going through discomfort. And oh my God, it was so uncomfortable. Like, you want to get angry, you want to get sad, you want to do anything you can to stop someone else's discomfort when you're a people pleaser, like you can't allow it. And instead I felt it. And talk about like what they call like psychic warfare or something. Every word she said felt like on my whole body. It felt like every cell in my body was being slapped at once. It did. That's how painful other people's discomfort is for me. I felt like really like all my cells were going wrong, wrong, wrong. It was like being slapped, like every word just hit me to the core of my being. She wasn't even necessarily, doing defense mechanisms against me. It was just her own pain was like, it was like I can only explain it as like every cell in my body was being slapped as hard as it could. And I just felt that discomfort. I just felt it. I didn't try to fix it. I just felt it. And of course we want to be there. That's what holding space is, allowing people to process their own shit, not doing it for them, not enabling unhealthy defense mechanisms, allowing someone to process their own stuff. So it took me to a memory from childhood, like when we are very malleable. So when did this discomfort come where I would go into automatic song and dance and people pleasing someone else? Because as soon as I knew someone felt arrogance, I knew they were covering up a pain, and I wanted to help them keep that arrogance alive, keep that uplifting of them alive, putting them on a pedestal so they could feel amazing, so they didn't have to feel that. Where did my discomfort come from? Why did I feel so uncomfortable with someone else's discomfort, Because when you feed into their arrogance, then you allow them to keep that defense mechanism alive so they don't break through the unhealthy patterns so that they can get to that core. Because the core is inside. That's what, in the Bible you can call it the Holy Spirit, or, in other, views and theories, enlightenment, nirvana, whatever, the seed, the truth of who you are is in there, and it's covered by, unhealthy ego, that creates all these defense mechanisms. So anyways, I remembered in childhood the anxiety, and I know I love my mom so much. And just like her, I've had the same pattern of behavior. I'm quite certain she lived through a lot of trauma that she didn't want to face because she put up that sort of arrogant facade, that unstoppable, facade that no one's going to bring me down. She never wanted to be vulnerable, and she put up those defense mechanisms, and she never really felt what she lived through, and she would get emotionally dysregulated. I've worked hard on that, and I've done a program called Free Spira, and I'll talk about that someday. My oldest has done it, and it's not saying that the emotional dysregulation is gone, because emotional dysregulation comes from the overwhelmed nervous system, and it affects the amygdala, and it's like the hijacking of the self by this feeling of overwhelm, by triggered states, so we have to really work, and this program didn't completely dissipate those, but it did bring back, it lowered the intensity of them. But I know for sure my mother would get emotionally dysregulated, and that's a very anxious state. So think, as a little girl, the person that is your world, your protection, and she was a single mother. My father passed when I always have to do the math, 8 years old, like right after my 8th birthday. So she was a single mother, and they were divorced before that. So she was our everything, that was our rock. And when our rock would fall apart like a mess, like an emotionally dysregulated mess, and it was also very, caused a lot of confusion and cognitive dissonance, because you see this powerhouse, this woman that was this freaking powerhouse, like this $1 million real estate agent, this, they called her the road runner, unstoppable, and then I would see this puddled mess, and then you personalize that too, like, oh my God, like, I must have done something wrong, because this is this superwoman, and she's a mess, when she's taking care of us, like, what message is being programmed into us, and not intentional. She had her own pain, we all do. We all fuck up. We're all fallible. We make fucking mistakes, So we bring in our awareness to see these patterns, so we can change them, so we can get to these core beliefs. So anyways, like, I noticed I would do a song and dance. And ironically, my mom, and I want to read you the words to the song, and it creates empathy for her as well, for me. Like, I had to, first see her not as that superwoman, and not as that dysregulated woman, but both. A woman that was, like a superwoman and a human being that had shit going on. See her in her fullness, both, because either way is a disservice. I don't want to feed into the misperception of perfection, and I also don't want to feed into the anxiety, So she would tell us as little kids, whenever you see mama upset, aka emotionally dysregulated, like out of control, play Una Paloma Blanca. God, the song was so triggering to listen to. But the words are really beautiful, and I can see that was her call for help, God, sorry, I'm really feeling it. When I listened to it earlier, it's like, I remember a record player in the living room, and she would get dysregulated. She would get triggered, and she would get just out of control. Her emotions would just flood her, And I remember just being a little girl, and malleable when her beliefs are being created. And I would sometimes go and, Mama's upset, hurry up, we got to get out Una Paloma Blanca, the song to play for her to, make her feel better. And sometimes we would play it and she would snap out of it. She would become regulated again, and then that created the song and dance. Because when someone's dysregulated, I need to fix them, and I need to play a song, and I need to dance and make them feel better, That's a core belief. That's an unhealthy core belief. It's not my job to do a song and dance to make someone not feel their own pain, And sometimes I would play that song, and I would just hear almost the needle on the record just skipping and playing, and it wouldn't stop. She would get dysregulated and it wouldn't stop. And then what message was that telling us? That we weren't good enough? That we weren't doing the dance good enough? That the song and dance wasn't good enough to stop her pain, These are core beliefs. And again, like, I have empathy. She didn't. This wasn't her intention, but this is things that happen. And these are these beliefs that go into place. I'm not people pleasing anymore. I don't want to do a song and dance for anyone anymore. I want to be me. I want to allow people their discomfort without having to make them feel better. You know, it's not my fucking job. You know, it's not my fucking job. So anyways, here's the lyrics to the song, and then I'm going to end. It's 30 fucking minutes. I hope it saves. Paloma Blanca. When the sun shines on the mountain and the night is on the run, it's a new day. It's a new way. And I fly up to the sun. I can feel the morning sunlight. I can smell the new moon hay. I can hear God's voices calling from my golden skylight wave. Una Paloma Blanca, I'm just a bird in the sky. Over the mountains I fly. No one can take my freedom away. Once I had my share of losing, for they locked me on a chain. Yes, they tried to break my power. Oh, I still can feel the pain. I'm just a bird in the sky. Over the mountains I fly. No one can take my freedom away. This is for you, Mom. I know you're flying now. I love you so much. And I forgive you.